Hi and welcome to Penser Bank and our analyst presentation of Fingerprint Cards, a company we initiated on last week. My name is Markus Almerud and I am an analyst here at the bank. So the case in short is that we think that the company is ready for a new chapter. They are market leaders in capacitive fingerprint sensors with about 30% market share. They have spent about 15 to 20% of sales on R&D in the past 5 years, and competition is increasingly more limited as technology becomes more complicated. The pricing has stabilized, costs are adapted, and demand in other segments are increasing. The company estimates that they will go from 1.2 or that the market will go from 1.2 to 1.3 billion sensors in 2021 to about 4.7 billion sensors in 2026. So we're just in front of a big increase in volume. On top of this, there's a huge upside from biometric payment cards. So this will be the next mass market for fingerprint sensors. The company sees a potential addressable market of about 3 billion sensors from cards alone in 2026. And I remind that the total was 1.2 to 1.3 billion sensors in 2021 for the whole market. Now, Fingerprints cooperates with all of the leaders in the value chain. The whole value chain targets commercial success, and fulfilling these targets would lead to sales of 13 to 15 billion krona in 2026. This all leads to potential to quadruple the shares. So value excluding the payment cards is 21 krona per share, so doubling from current levels more or less, with relatively low risk. And we value payment cards to 32 kronor on top of that, with estimates far below the companies. And for example, we see an addressable market of 750 million units versus the company's 3 billion units. Now, we reflect on the part of this in our motivated value, 8 krona, which gives us a total sum of the parts of 28 krona with a potential upside to over 50 krona if payment cards take off. So what all this boils down to is a quadrupling of sales over the next 5 years from 1.4 billion krona to 6.1 billion krona with expanding margins. Now, the reason for the margins expanding is a change in mix. We go from 90% mobile to about 20% mobile. Mobile has gross margins of around 25 to 30%, and the other segments have about 40% gross margins. This will lead to gross margin going from 29% to 38%. So very sharp increase in sales with expanding margins is what we expect over the next 5 years. This will give a potential doubling also when we do not take the optionality in payments into account. We see value at 21 krona with 33 krona value in payments. But as I said, we only reflect part of that to reflect the risk, and we have the sum of the parts value of 28 krona with a potential value increase up to over 50 krona per share. A little bit about the respective markets, starting with mobile. This is a stable market. We see 6 krona per share in our sum of the parts. Market volumes are stable. They gain some market shares and pricing fall a little bit, which gives no revenue CAGR. However, the technological height is increasing, which increases the barriers of entry and gives a chance for market share gains. For example, sensors are moving from the front and the back of the mobile to the side of the mobile. We value this unit to 2 times sales as it's quite mature, and this gives us the value of 6 krona per share. Moving on to PC, here's the penetration rate which drives the market. We see 9 krona per share in our sum of the parts. The customer base here is very, very concentrated, which increases the chance of success. The market leader in this market have recently launched 8 models with Fingerprint Cards technology. We see the penetration in the market going from 20% to 15%, which will lead to 16% market CAGR of PCs with biometric authentication. Also here with limited competition. Now, an important trigger here and a driver of the market is Microsoft, which is pushing for biometric solutions. They want vendors to be ESS compatible, and this is important. Now, Fingerprint's solution was added to Microsoft's approved vendor list in Q1, which gives them access to the enterprise computer market, which is about half of the PC market. And this should allow for market share gains. Looking at pricing, it's higher and more stable, and this will drive the gross margin for the group. Moving on to payments, which is where we see the optionality. We estimate 3.6 billion krona in revenues in 2026, but see potential for 14 billion, and we value the segment to 32 krona per share. Now, biometric payments cards is expected to be the next mass market. The company itself, they estimate the addressable market to about 3 billion cards and hence 3 billion sensors in 2026. Now, the ecosystem is very concentrated and everyone here works for commercial success. The concentration increases the barriers to entry. There are only 3 competitors, including fingerprints. Now, the lower cost of the card here is the key, and focus of fingerprints is hence to reduce the number of components in the card. We think the cost of the card today is about $10 compared to $1 to $3 for a contactless card. But we also expect the payment cards, the biometric payment cards, to go down to around $3 by 2026. Where are we right now? We've seen 8 commercial launches and about 25 pilots from Fingerprint and 2 commercial launches from the main competitor IDEX in Norway. To reach Fingerprint's own targets would mean 1.5 billion sensors sold in 2026, which would mean revenues about 14 billion. That's 10 times the revenues we saw for the group in 2021. We are a bit more cautious than that. We see 3 billion contactless cards in 2026. We see penetration rates in line with what we saw for contactless cards after 5 years. And hence, we see about a quarter of the market compared to what Fingerprint sees. With 50% market shares, it will give us the revenues of 3.6. We value the segment to 4 times sales, and that gives us 32 krona value. We also think that share price wise, we are at a good entry level. We're back to 2018 to 2020 levels, despite a lot having happened to the company, and hence we think this is a good time to enter the share. So in summary, without taking payments into account, we still see almost a doubling of the share, going up to 28 krona in our sum of the parts if we include payments, with the potential of going up to over 50 krona if payments cards are successful. Thank you.